Hey, welcome to the discussion of the 5 elements. So in Chinese medicine, the 5 elements include fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And this is really the fundamentals of Chinese medicine and understanding how we are a microcosm of the macrocosm of the whole universe and the whole planet. And us are really made up and can be broken down into the 5 elements. And yet also they work together, harmonizing one another, generating one another, controlling one another, and really keeping this cycle going in this creation through these elements. So let's talk a little bit about this chart here, this diagram, which is really explaining how the 5 elements are generating one another. So the arrows on the outside of the circle are describing how each element is generating one and the other. So the fire generates the earth element, and this is seen in nature by fire creating the ash, which then creates the earth, nourishes the earth. And then earth creates metal by hardening the rock and creating the metal element. The metal element creates the water by actually providing the mineral content for the water within salts and potassium and iodine and copper. And the water generates the wood by nourishing the wood so it can grow. And the wood generates fire by providing the fuel in nature for fire to be able to burn. Okay, so this is really easy to understand. And there's many examples that we can use. And then how this is seen in the human body. So in the human body, fire. So this is the heart and the small intestine as well. And the fire actually generates the spleen and the stomach, which is the earth element. And the heart generates the spleen energy by actually creating the warmth and the metabolic energy for the spleen to be able to break down the food and create digestion. The earth element generates the metal, which is the earth generating the lung and the large intestine. And this is done by really the spleen generating the gu qi, the food qi, which then is sent to the lungs for gathering qi and then transformed into a nutri qi that can be nourish all of the organs and all of the meridians. And then the metal element, the lungs will nourish the kidney and the bladder element. And this is by actually the lungs that will draw in the qi into the body. And then this can be grasped by the kidneys and then transformed into jing energy. And then the water will nourish the wood, so the kidney will nourish the liver and the gallbladder energy. And this is by the kidney yin actually nourishing the liver yin, which then nourishes the liver blood. Also then the wood generates the fire, so this is the liver nourishing the fire of the heart and the small intestine, and this is by actually the liver providing a house and a base for the blood to reside, so the heart and the Sheng can have a place in the system. So this is how they all connect into one another in this cycle. So just a little breakdown of this generating cycle, also called the Sheng cycle. So wood creates fire by burning, fire creates earth by ashes, earth creates the metal by hardening, metal creates water through the minerals, and water creates wood by nourishment. Okay, so the 5 element also has an understanding of a mother and a child relationship within also the elements. And so this is an understanding that as much as they're generating one another, they're also feeding one another. So each element has a mother and a child in the cycle, which is shown in the diagram. If the child element is a little deficient, then maybe it's because it's not receiving enough qi from the mother. And also the child element can become a little bit too full and also affect the mother element. So you can see in this diagram which element is generating the other element. So you can see from this the mother and the child relationship. The mother is the one that's generating it, and the child element is the one that's receiving the energy from the mother energy. So you can really start to understand a little bit more on how they work with each other and sort of looking for a little bit more of the root cause of any disharmony within the body. So, if there's something going on with the digestive system, then perhaps you need to look at the heart energy or the fire energy to make sure that that's really firing, or, that there's not too much fire as well. So equally, looking as well at the child relationship and seeing if there's an overacting in the earth, which is then also dampening the fire somewhat. So really looking into the whole system, not just in the way that they cycle into one another, but really their key relationships with one another as well. Okay, so also within nature, there's a natural controlling cycle, the Qi cycle. And this is understanding that it's not just about continuous growth, because if we just had continuous growth with everything, then everything would get completely out of control. So there has to be some system to maintain this balance in nature as well, which is what this controlling cycle explains. So there's a quote here from The Spiritual Pivot, which is a very famous book on Chinese medicine. And it says, "In the mystery of nature, neither promotion of growth, Shen, nor control, Qi, is dispensable. Without promotion of growth, there would be no development. And without control, excessive growth would result in harm." So this really explains it really well, the importance of this. So talking a little bit about this then within this cycle. So if you have a look on this diagram, you can see the arrows which are inside of the circle. And these are explaining the controlling cycle within these elements. So you can see that fire controls metal. And this is seen in nature as fire melting metal. And metal controls the wood. And this very often is explained by the axe cutting the tree. And then wood controlling the earth. You can see this by the wood actually creates the strong roots, and then which the earth can actually have its really strong foundation. And the earth controls the water. You can see this by the way that it actually channels through the rivers and the streams and creates a passageway for the water. And also then the water controls the fire by extinguishing it or creating a balance there so it doesn't overblare. So you can also see this within the human body as well, this controlling cycle. And you can see this within the heart, controlling the lungs. And this is by actually the heart that's pumping the blood, which is pumping the oxidized blood from the lungs through the system. And then the metal, the lung, controlling the liver. And this is actually by the lung that brings in the qi, which then the liver is dispersing and actually spreading the flow of qi throughout the body. The wood is controlling the earth, and you can see this within the human body is actually the wood. The liver has a big impact on the digestive system with creating the breakdown of fats within the body and the digestive system. And the earth controlling the water. You see this as well within the body, as the spleen is really the one which is helping to transform and transport the fluids as well, which the kidney is providing. And then the water, which is controlling the fire. You see this in the body as well, as the kidneys are really controlling the heart fire and making sure that there's harmony between the water and the fire elements within the body and the mind. Okay, so this really just explains a breakdown of this controlling this Qi cycle. Fire controlling metal by melting, metal controlling the wood by cutting, wood controls the earth by covering, earth controls the water by damming, and water controls fire by extinguishing. Also, there are movements within these 5 elements. So wood is seen as the expansive energy, this outward energy. Fire is the upward energy. Earth is the center point, this point of reference and stability, which is still. And then metal is contracting, and water has a downward energy.